very much for joining us today. It's great to have you on this Zoom call with Sue and Stuart. Really appreciate your time. And can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
We got married in 1971 and we moved overseas to England for 2 years, ostensibly, for Stuart to work with in IBM, and I was a registered nurse, so I worked in a number of London hospitals while we were there. Then the company that Stuart was working with moved him to California, obviously Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. After that, we moved back to England, and then we moved to Holland. Our 2 daughters were born in Holland. We then moved back to England. We adopted our intellectually disabled son in England. And then we finally moved back to California. That was really, that was a good time. It was an interesting time. Our kids sort of went through their teenagers and young adult life in California.
Okay.
At the end of 2015, we moved back to Australia. Yep. Back to Melbourne, which is where we're from. And now we're living here and enjoying being back home.
And sounds like you've had different occupations during that time, or was it the same IT theme?
Primarily all with IT. I actually worked for 32 years with IBM, and then worked in a startup for another 15 years, working in the education industry, but in IT in that context. But all of that, we had lots of challenges, I think, in all of that, because nothing was consistent. We didn't sort of live in one place. We were always moving, having to make adjustments and a lot of things. So, when we're thinking about our future, a lot of that was very disjointed. Mm-hmm. And I think that led us into really what's now going on. And that is that we didn't really manage our finances particularly well.
So, that definitely leads it on. So you've completed the financial fitness program. What was one of the learnings that you enjoyed about the financial fitness program?
Well, I think the biggest one we learned was the 24-hour rule.
Yep.
And in a number of ways. One is it stopped us with some of our impulse buying, which we were both pretty good at. But I think the other thing is, as Sue has said, it helped her feel more comfortable going out shopping.
Yep.
It was very liberating to go out shopping and then say no to a salesperson, because one of the things with the 24-hour rule is don't buy. I mean, you can set yourself a minimum. You might say I can spend up to $100, but over $100 I have to think about it for 24 hours before I decide to buy it. Mm-hmm. You can set your own limit. Maybe it's $50, maybe $25, whatever it is. I set mine pretty low, actually. I was determined to really get on top of things. But I found it very liberating to be able to say no to a salesperson and to explain to them why, because I'm going to think about it for 24 hours before I buy. And they'd look at me as if I was a little strange. And then I'd explain that I had followed this financial literacy program and it was getting me out of debt.
Yeah.
And that's why I was doing it. And pretty much without fail, they'd all say, well, that's amazing. That's really fantastic. And I'm glad you're taking your finances seriously.
Yes. And so what sort of things would you apply that 24-hour rule to? So groceries would still be okay, but what other things?
Groceries were budgeted for, so it wasn't groceries, although I was careful not to exceed a certain limit.
Yep.
But clothes, I like clothes. I don't need to wear that many clothes, but I still like to buy them. So I did have to put an embargo on clothes shopping, definitely. Shoes, I think, was something that I have difficult feet to fit, so I usually find the more expensive shoes fit my feet better than cheap shoes. I can't really make do with cheap shoes. So I'd have to really look at that and save up and think about whether I needed those shoes or not, because I've also applied, do I need it or do I just want it? Most of the time, I just wanted it. I think that was the biggie for us. And I did have a heavy latte habit. I would, anytime I saw a coffee shop, I'd go in and buy a latte. So I cut down on that. I got used to making coffee and taking it with me in a mug, a thermos mug. So, I mean, that sounds sort of ridiculous, But if you think of a latte, even a small latte being $4.50, $5, I added it up and realized that I was spending in excess of $1,000 a year just in coffee.
Yeah.
And it may sound like a small thing, but it's $1,000 over 12 months.
Definitely. And that's where keeping track of those expense diaries and seeing those little habits as they develop so that you can be able to manage them. And definitely extrapolating it out over what is the yearly cost, what is the monthly cost of this, and is it necessary? Is it a want, or is it a necessity for the family to survive? And it's so many times it's just a want. That then comes back to, well, if I delay this, can I get the better quality, like the shoes, and I can make a better buying decision? And so that can then help. And it's exactly right. It's the discipline to say, not now, not no, but not now.
and maybe not this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think it through. Yeah, I didn't have a shopping problem at all because I had to be persuaded to go and shop for clothing. But gadgets.
Kevin's the same.
Gadgets was a different deal.
Yeah.
Now it very much came into the want and need thing, and it did help me a lot to resolve that one.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, he would be inclined to go into the nearest hardware store. If he saw a hardware store, he'd go in and find something that some interesting gadget.
Yeah, I'm the same. My addictions is not shoes and clothes. It's actually hardware and office stuff. I can go in and buy all the cool office stuff that I need and the latest tools for my hardware, because it totally makes my life easier. So I have to have it. And yet when I look at it, like, how often do you actually use it, Sarah? Once a year, but it was a really good deal and I had to have it.
Yes.
So understanding that and making it work. Yeah. No, that's really, really good. And so definitely that discipline of learning from that. So what recommendations would you put towards our viewers?
Well, I think the thing to remember is that, and our program covers this in great detail, the 47 principles. It is principles of finance. It's one thing to sort of say, I'll save and I'll put money aside, which is fantastic, and you need to save. And I certainly set up a rainy day account, which I'd never thought of doing before. And I have found the rainy day account very useful once or twice when I've had things that I have needed, or there's been an emergency. And it's been very good to know that I actually have the money available and I can use it, not to have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. But I think I'd never thought of using financial principles. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't really brought up with that idea either. I was brought up with the idea of saving some money and not exceeding my income, but I'm not sure that I really listened to what I was told. I mean, as a young person, do you listen to your parents very closely? Probably not. I think other people had greater influence on me when I was young, so I got into bad habits early. So to me, I think the big thing is the principles, because it's not you should do this or you should do that. It's like, this is the principle. You should be considering how that principle fits your life and how you make your finances fit that principle. So it's a two-way, to me, anyway, I find it a two-way thing. It's using the principles to decide how to fit my finance into the principles, and also how to apply those to my finances and my life.
Definitely, because the principles stand the test of time. They work in any economy, in any situation. And as long as we apply them and use them, like you were saying, then that then ensures that we are still on the right track, that we're not getting off track, we're not being wayward.
That's right.
It makes a massive difference, because like when COVID happened, a lot of people were not prepared. A lot of people were out of work, or their hours were greatly reduced. But with a lot of the principles, the ones that had those rainy day accounts, that had that buffer, the shock wasn't so difficult. It was still uncomfortable and the active income was lower, but they didn't lose their house. They didn't have to sell everything. So they they could weather that storm a little bit better, because the principles stand the test of time, no matter what the economy. So that's really, really great. No, I appreciate that. That's awesome.
I found that it actually made me be more intentional.
Yes, yes.
Because I had to stop and think of the principles for what I was looking to do and how they applied. So in making it more intentional, it brought it back to, well, why am I doing this? And then started thinking about, does this fit into my goals? Is this what, as a family we should be doing? Does this fit in with that? And that measure of intentionality really helped a lot. Now, in itself, that's not a principle, but you wrap the principles up and intentionality comes out of it.
Definitely. Because if we're not working towards something, what are we doing it for? And having that conscious decision, is it moving me closer to my goals, or is it moving me further away? Is it the best use of my money at this time, or is it not? And it's super important to be able to make those decisions, because then you're an informed buyer, you're an informed researcher. You know that this is a good deal and you can spot it, or no, this is not a good deal at all. This is a standard. This is a standard price, not an exceptional price, or a great discount, even though it says it on the sale or what the salesman tells you. Understanding that difference, and making that conscious, and then sitting on it for 24 hours to say yes.
Yes, or even longer sometimes.
Yeah,
even longer than 24 hours. Sometimes it's better to say, well, maybe I'll budget for this in next month.
Definitely.
So
So there's lots of those sort of things. I think the other thing is it helped us actually get clarity on our goals as to actually what we did want to achieve, in whether it was short term or long term, and that then helped a lot in terms of even budgeting, both in that more short term sense, but also in the longer term sense. If you're thinking about, well, we want to do an overseas trip, how do we plan for that? And knowing now, okay, so that's something we've got a long-term plan for, we shall plan for that. Okay, so that means we need to start saving up for it, so we can actually put money into a special savings account for that one particular purpose. And then when we were ready, we had the money for that particular, in that particular case, a vacation, some travel, or for something else, we were there ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can have as many of those targeted savings being one of the principles, having that targeted savings set up so that it is there and contributing to it, so that that that's our budget. We cannot take it from any other buckets. That's where it's coming from.
Exactly.
And if we can't afford it right now, we wait until we can.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think the other thing that following the financial principles, I don't think that we really lived seriously with goals, and we had dreams, but we didn't really goal set for those dreams. Mm-hmm. We just we lived life in a fairly sort of ad hoc kind of way. Yep. Whatever cropped up, we sort of think, oh, that'd be a good idea, which affected our finances. Yep. And I think that's, since we've learned that and we've put these principles into place, we've also learned that it's really about goal setting for your life. It's not just about finances. It's about, as Stuart says, it's about planning things out ahead. Mm-hmm. And that goes for all aspects of your life, and that will spill over into your financial life.
Definitely.
So that's what we found.
Yeah, because, and like, you're closer to retirement than what I am, but in that retirement, planning for that, I've noticed with a lot of my different clients, the attitude towards retirement. Oh, we'll always have a pension. It'll be fine. We'll always have our superannuation. And yet when we have these big bubbles and the downturns, how does that affect our superannuation? It's so far away and it's not that important. My husband and I went through and amalgamated. He had so many different account keeping fees because he had so many different super funds, and they were all just chewing up his nest egg. None of them had any intention of looking after Kevin's best interests. And so when I amalgamated them all and I said, you guys are going to give us back our account keeping fees now because it was set up incorrectly to start with. We provided you the account with the super choice, but they had gone ahead and done something different. And so we were able to amalgamate and to reduce those fees so that retirement fund was there. and yet so many things. I just have one more question about currencies. So being able to live in so many different locations and spending time there, did you find the principles universal no matter the currency, or was there some challenges with different currencies in different places you were living?
In the currencies themselves, no challenge whatsoever. There were certainly some differences in terms of, like if you're living in a very, very high expensive area, which even applies here in Australia, but we certainly saw it in America, living in San Francisco area, very, very expensive. Some of the things you had to be a little bit more flexible with. But once again, the principle still was there, because I think where you have a number, you have to sort of think, well, what's the real principle behind the number, even if it's incorporated in that principle? And so, well, what does it mean and how do I work it? And of course, a lot of it's worked on the basis of how do you manage the money you're spending? All right, and can you manage that money without compromising anything else? And so maybe some of it is, you say, actually combine two areas into one to actually manage this one thing, but I'm sacrificing in another area that maybe someone would normally keep. And so it's about a matter of balancing. But I think the thing that we've certainly learned is that the principles do apply, and that we can use it in multiple countries with multiple tax laws and everything else. Yes, I think you'll find that the actual financial fitness program will talk about some of the US savings plans. Well, most of those, there is a relatively easy translation to ones in Australia or to other countries. So it's just making those adjustments. And not only that, one of the things that they do talk about in the program is that you should still seek financial advice for specific decisions with people who are experts in those areas. Definitely. So that is one of the principles, is doing that. So that really helped us know where the lines were and what we needed to be knowledgeable about. And also, the more knowledge we had, the better we were at talking with the experts, because we knew a little bit more about their language and were able to challenge some of the comments they made when they were being a little bit more flippant with their comment, passing it off as not a problem. And I said, no, that's actually a real problem, because I understand that.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, because I know when I'm talking with professionals, they're like, do you actually understand any of this, or am I just wasting my time talking to you? Just give me your money and it'll be fine. And I'm like, no, I actually do want to be involved in this, because it's actually my money and my future and my goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so without that involvement, just putting the trust completely in them, so many stories where the trust has been violated, the principles have not been followed, and the accountability just hasn't been there from the professionals, and they're good with that. And it's like, I'm not, it's my life, I worked really hard for this.
Yeah. One of the areas that I'm worried about, not for me but for others, is the people who've taken money out of their superannuation funds during the COVID crisis with probably no financial advice whatsoever, don't understand the implications of it, and have probably frittered away that money, or will continue to do. Yep. And I'm concerned about their future and what is the impact of that on society in total.
Absolutely. A lot of my friends, they pulled it out and put it on consumer debt. So they paid off consumer debt with a crazy interest, where there could have been the roll down method used to just stay disciplined with it. But you're exactly right, forfeited their future in retirement for a short-term gain. Yep. That they will run up the same consumer debt as soon as possible, because they haven't learnt the principle. And so that's my concern too. And that's why this program is so very valuable right now, to help people in preparation, to help people moving forward, to help that understanding, and understanding like just interests and payments and where we're actually at with our school board. The government money is going to end. It is not going to be there to look after everybody. So are we preparing for that? So I agree. Absolutely. That's awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'd just like to add that we now live a cash lifestyle. We have no debt, and we both sleep very soundly at night, because the amount of debt we were in was not a comfortable place to be, and we had sleepless nights, and we were worried about where we were going financially. So we just are very grateful that we found this and thankful that we found this program, or perhaps I should say the program found us.
As it does.
As it does. And, you know, we put in a lot of hard work. I won't say it's easy. I think that's the other thing. We have to be honest and say it's not easy. It does take work. But, oh, heavens above, the result is so worth it. Because we, as I said, we have no debt now, and we don't buy things that take us into debt at all, and we won't ever again. So that is thanks to the financial fitness program and the 47 principles. We live our life by that, and we live, you know, worry-free.
And it's worth it. The discipline to grow those strong muscles for applying the principles is worth it.
Absolutely.
Definitely the peace of mind. And I agree. Absolutely being able to sleep well at night and not have the stress of how am I going to afford this next bill?
Yeah.
This month is not going to go well because I have all of these bills in.
Yeah.
How are we going to do that?
Yeah. So robbing Peter to pay Paul is not a good game to play.
Definitely. And just looking, where's it going to come from? Where it's not coming out of our earnings right now. So where are we going to find that money?
Yeah. And it's like a lot of people, think, well, the government can afford that. Well, where does the government get its money from? I think some people just don't understand this connection. And it's not just, what we pay in taxes to what the government spends, but it's the whole area of everything. There is a money flow in all of this, and you need to have a comprehension of that. Otherwise, you just don't understand, and the implications actually start hurting you.
Definitely, which is why this program is so important, because it shows you that playing field, understanding the economics and the decisions made by the government, because we're going to be feeling this COVID forever. It is not going to go away, and it's going to take a long time for us to get back as cash flow positive in Australia again. We had surplus, but we're now in a huge deficit, and it's going to be a long time until we get out of it.
And what happens with the climate crisis or something else, or we have another set of major bushfires or something like that? It isn't going to go away. We haven't got over one little mountain and we can find sailing from now on. No. We're going to have other sort of hiccups coming through. Some will be really major, some won't be quite so, but we've got to be prepared for that and continue to work for that.
Definitely. We're heading into flood season again and fire season again. So Australia is very much at the elements, and we have seen the impacts that are just getting worse and worse for people. Complete devastation. So yeah, and that's where our tidings is there to help people. When we've got those tidings in place, it helps to contribute to other people as well. So
exactly,
the principles are there for reasons. I agree. Oh, that's awesome. Really appreciate your time.
That's okay. I like the other one, Sarah, and that is that this is a program that anybody can do.
Definitely.
You don't need special skills. You don't need to anything. If you want to understand your own finances, this will help you do that.
I agree. Absolutely. I know for me, listening to the terminologies and the principles sometimes, and I'm like, I don't understand what they're talking about. I need to get more information on it. And that's why the mentoring is so great, the association working with people, so that we can help. We can work together to get it right, to explain it, to draw it out, because there is so many people throwing around terminology that actually is irrelevant. It doesn't impact us in any way. But if we don't know, how do we know which ones we're supposed to be listening to? And that's what is so invaluable about all the reference material.
Yeah. It's what goes behind all the, the finance. It's understanding what's at the base of it. And as Stuart says, it's not rocket science. You don't need a degree to understand this program. It's really very simple. And that's what I like, because I'm not a very numerically inclined person, shall we say? So
make the numbers add up.
So I think I feel more confident in tackling finance through the program because, as I say, I'm not a particularly numerically inclined. I can add and subtract, but that's probably where it ends.
And I'm so glad when I slip that my mentors are there to help me. They pick me up and they reset the goals, and it's like, it's okay, we'll get it this time. And yeah, we reset and we go and do it again.
And I think that is an important point that you've raised, Sarah, is that, and we haven't touched on that, is the mentorship with this program as well. There's always somebody there who can hold your hand and help you through it.
And help you to hold yourself accountable.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's important because what we're not looking at, what we're not inspecting, we're not respecting as well. So, and I know working for money is hard work these days. It's definitely getting more uphill battle. Our dollar doesn't go as far as it ever did before. So
no, but I agree. It is the accountability, and I didn't always like having my mentor holding me accountable.
Definitely.
But that was part of the hard work. You can't enjoy every minute of life. Some parts of life you have to be responsible. And I think it was just because, you know, it was just holding me accountable and somebody just taking my hand and guiding me through it. It wasn't somebody you know, punishing me or telling me I'd done wrong. It was somebody sitting down with me and just guiding me through the principles. And when I got stuck, there was somebody there to help me and answer my questions.
Definitely, because they're not there to judge. We're all there to help you achieve your goals.
Exactly.
That's important.
Yeah, I never did feel judged. Other than I judged myself, probably. But that I needed to do to grow and to make the changes.
Yep, which makes it super important important indeed.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much for your time. Greatly appreciate it.